Good morning. Welcome. January 1st, 2026. Happy New Year. My name is Angela. I am a software engineer and front-end developer in St. Paul, Minnesota. And on this channel, we practice vanilla. We just work on projects. We do vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I would say that I put a fair amount of emphasis on accessibility and search engine optimization. Yeah, here we are. Happy New Year to everybody. Rahul is here. Rahul from Nepal, one of the mods in the chat. Hello, how was your New Year? It was honestly, it was just like any other day. I was in bed asleep at midnight. I didn't stay up to celebrate New Year. I haven't stayed up to celebrate New Year in a decade. It's not my thing. So here's the thing. I live in Minnesota. It's been snowing for the last 2 days. We've had a lot of snow this year. Even if it wasn't snowing, traditionally on New Year's Eve, it is always very cold in Minnesota. And I don't want to be out on the road driving around in the dark in the cold. It just sounds dangerous. Doesn't sound like a good time to me. I used to do it in my 20s. I don't do it anymore. I just went to bed last night. It was just like any other night for me. It was no big deal. But I thoroughly enjoyed yesterday during the day, during the live stream, because for many of you, it was it the clock struck midnight during the stream. So Rahul, for example, is in Nepal, which is 12 hours ahead. So that was pretty exciting. Rahul got to time travel back in time, 12 hours, being part of the stream. So Malik is here. Go Elmo, formerly Go Elmo Go, currently Malik Robinson. Welcome. Happy New Year. Monique Robinson is also here. Welcome, Monique, out on the East Coast. How's your weather out there in Maryland? I think that Monique gets a lot of the weather that we get here in Minnesota as it moves across the country. So hopefully it's not too cold and snowy. We've gotten a lot of cold and snow this winter so far. Minnesota is a cold, snowy place, but it hasn't been like this the last few years. I would say the last 5, 6 years, it just hasn't been like this at all. So it's a lot. Do me a favor, like the video if you haven't yet. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love to have you. I'm here every Saturday and Sunday. I'm also going to be streaming during the week moving forward because it kind of makes sense. I would like to spend more time. I can't believe I'm saying this. People probably say the opposite of this. I would like to spend more time online. This is dedicated work time. I get so much work done, even in these just little 2-hour chunks. It's crazy how much work I get done. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm not actively trying to build my audience on this channel. We have about 1,600 subscribers, but the channel's not monetized yet because I'm still working on getting those watch time hours up. So I think streaming during the week is going to help me do that. And it's going to help me build my audience at the same time. And it's more time that I have set aside to get work done, which I love. So, and of course, I love hanging out with you guys and chatting. So, yes, Malik is in Florida. So he's enjoying some nice 60-degree weather, all the windows open, relaxing, ready to code. I don't hold that against you at all because this summer I remember you distinctly saying that you were sweltering in the Florida heat without air conditioning, so enjoy it. Mohammed is here. Happy New Year. Welcome. Rahul says, not my thing as well. I think you're talking about being out at midnight. We don't strictly follow this date as we have our own date system and it's running in 2082. Oh, that's interesting. That is so interesting. I know that different countries have different ways of doing things. So that's crazy. It's 2082 in Nepal. I'm going to put that on my mental list of things to Google later on. So I think that's so interesting. Yes, Mohammed, welcome. We're happy to have you. So, okay, here's what we're working on. Yesterday, I have to tell you, I'm so incredibly pleased with what we got done yesterday. This mobile nav, I'm just in love with it. I think it looks amazing. Another reason why it's a really good idea to go out and just pick up some generic PSDs, some generic mock-ups. What I tend to buy Photoshop mock-ups. You could buy Figma, Sketch, whatever it is that you use. Just go out and get yourself some mock-ups, because I just can't come up with all the ideas myself. I mean, look how simple this is. And it just looks so good. I just love it. So we basically have all of our HTML and CSS implemented for the header. Now we need to get our JavaScript in here. So let me see here. And the JavaScript is just going to be a click event, right? So let's see here. This a little bigger. Here's our CSS. Did I start? Script.js. Oh, wait a second. Do I already have a script file in here? I do. And I think we can delete this. So we do have our script.js here. All right. Come on. Let me take this. So I have this menu active class on the body. I'm going to take this off. And then we're going to make sure, get these in the right order. So now, when we're mobile, we want the click event on this open button, right? So when we click on the open button, we're going to add the menu active class to the body. And then CSS does all of the work for us, does all the heavy lifting, does the transition, it does everything. I see other developers using JavaScript to do a lot of what you could be doing with CSS. But I would never tell somebody that they're doing it wrong. I think it's just the sign of somebody who maybe doesn't have as much CSS experience as I do. One of the benefits of leaning into building UIs, which is clearly what I do as a front-end developer. Yeah, so there's that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to look at one of my GitHub repos because I don't have this memorized. So we need to define the body, and I for sure have to take off GitHub Copilot. I don't need help with this today. Document, query selector, and it's just body. Oh, Angela, type, query selector, all. And here's where we're looking for the menu button. And so query selector all gives us an array. That's what we want. And then we also just want the open button by itself. Query selector, open. And we actually have Rahul to thank for this, because I think I was doing a stream where in the past I was adding and removing classes to multiple parts of the navigation, and Rahul was like, why don't you just put it on the body class? I was like, you know, that's a good idea. I should do that. So here we are. Okay. So we'll do a function called menu toggle. Oh, this is not right. There we go. And we're going to say if there's an open button, and then we're going to loop through the buttons array. So we'll just for each through. And then we're going to add an event listener to the button that we click on. And it's a click event. And then we're going to define is active. And this is going to do a couple different things. So let me move this out of the way here. Is active. So body, class list, toggle, menu, active. And this does two things. When we're clicking on the button, we are toggling menu active on the body, but we're also using this as a Boolean value. So if is active, and I put set attribute, I put aria-expanded on here, didn't I? Aria-expanded right here. So if is active, on the open button, we want to set the attribute aria-expanded to true. And that's a string. Else, on the open button, we're going to set the attribute aria-expanded to false. Also a string. Did I spell everything right? Aria-expanded, aria-expanded. So if it's active, we want to set the aria-expanded, because by default it's false. We're going to set it to true if it's active, which would mean that the menu is active. So yes, it's true. It's expanded. If it's not, if we don't have this menu active on the body, then we're going to set it back to false. So there's our menu toggle. So we'll get this wired up first. There we go. Easy peasy. So we have the body class, menu active, aria-expanded true. And then of course we're hiding this button when the menu is open because we don't want, excuse me, and Malik says, we haven't been getting many JavaScript struggle sessions lately. You're improving too fast. Yeah, JavaScript is the thing that I struggle the most with. I think I'm getting, well, when it comes to this JavaScript, right, for toggling navigation, I've just come up with a system that works and I've used it so many times now. It's pretty solid. It's holding up. And also I'm getting so much better at using GitHub Copilot. I think the key to being successful with AI is understanding how to prompt and how to ask for what you need, which is easier said than done, but it is getting easier. So, okay, so this is looking great. This is doing exactly what we wanted to. So let's just tab through. Let's use the keyboard to tab through. So we are landing on the H1 first because this is a link, so that's fine. And then here's our button. I'm going to hit return. Perfect. And then we tab again. And the first thing that we see is the close button. That's fine. We can tab through each thing. Oh, and then this is also getting focus. That's interesting. So these also get focus. Is it the pre or the code block? It must be the pre. Oh, because these have a tab index of 0? Why? Let's ask ChatGPT about this. So I did not put tab index 0 on these pre-formatted elements. This is most definitely coming from the Prism JS. So let's ask ChatGPT about this, because I avoid tab index, especially tab index 0. I understand why it may be useful or important, but I think that it's easy to overuse and abuse when really what you should be doing is just writing good semantic markup. So, let's make a mental note to ask ChatGPT about this. That's interesting. I'm glad that we're tabbing. But here's the thing. Our navigation works the way it should. So let's do this again. So that's interesting too. So here's what happened. So I open the menu and I tab through CSS gets focus. So I hit return and we scroll to that point. But now the focus has left the navigation. The focus is no longer inside the navigation. And that's because I'm almost certain it's because of the tab index. So how does this behave on desktop? I don't know if that's the right behavior or not. I have no idea. Don't know. Let's do one more thing for the navigation, and then we're going to ask ChatGPT about this. Let's have a little conversation. So here's the other thing that I want to do for the navigation. So interesting. This is why you need to set aside a little time to tab through and be very observant about the behavior. Is that really, and if you see behavior that you don't expect or you're not sure about, figure out if it's the right behavior or if it's the expected behavior or the accessible behavior. And that, what did that take? 3.5 minutes to tab through and just make an observation. That's all you need to do. Spend a couple minutes actually using the site and observing how it works. Okay, so here's the other thing that we need to do. When this is open, we need to make sure that when we hit the escape key, we are removing menu active, which is closing the drawer, and we are changing aria-expanded back to false. So we're going to do another function called, let's see here, escape toggle. And again, we're going to check for that open button. So if there's an open button, we're going to document, add event listener, and it's a key down. And yes, we need that event. And we're going to say body class list remove menu active. And open set attribute aria-expanded. We're going to change it to false. So now we should be able to, let me make sure I got all this right. Yeah, I did. Oh, no, I didn't. I missed something. So we need that. We have to do if the key that we press is the escape key, and the body contains menu active. So if there's an open button, we're going to do an event listener key down. And if the key pressed is escape and the body contains the menu active, we're going to remove menu active, and we're going to change aria-expanded to false on the open button. And I don't think this is a requirement for accessibility. I think that it's highly recommended for accessibility. So this is open, and I'm just going to hit escape. Let's see here. So we'll open this again. Menu active, true. If I hit escape, removes the body class, changes that to false. Okay, so those are the two things that we need to wire up the navigation. Let's ask now about this behavior. Okay, so I'm just going to explain what I'm observing. I'm using Prism JS for syntax highlighting on a one-page website. I have navigation that uses smooth scrolling to each section. When I use the keyboard to focus on nav items and scroll to a section, Prism has added tab index equals 0 to the pre-formatted elements, which takes the focus away from the navigation and makes the pre-element and gives the pre-element focus. This doesn't seem like the correct behavior. Why does Prism.js do this? And what should the behavior be? All right, let's see. Okay, Prism isn't trying to steal focus. It's making your code blocks focusable by adding tab index 0 to the pre element, specifically if the parent of the code is a pre and that pre doesn't already have a tab index. Why Prism does this? The motivation is accessibility and cross-behavior consistency, cross-browser consistency. A pre-element often has overflow auto, horizontal scrolling for long lines. Keyboard users need a way to tab into the scrollable region so they can scroll it with arrow keys, page up, page down, etc. Safari in particular historically wouldn't include these Prism code blocks in the tab order unless they're explicitly focusable, which means keyboard only users couldn't reach or scroll the code. Adding tab index 0 fixes that. So Prism's intent is basically code blocks should be reachable with the keyboard. What should the behavior be? Two separate things are getting mixed together. Should pre be tabbable? Sometimes. If the code block is actually scrollable, especially horizontally, making it tabbable is reasonable so keyboard users can scroll/read it. If it's not scrollable, short snippets. Okay, so if it's not scrollable, meaning short snippets, putting it in the tab order can be annoying noise. Prism currently does the broad version, makes them tabbable by default, and there's ongoing discussion that this should be opt-in or conditional. Also, just to be precise, tab index 0 means put this element into the normal tab order. Why is your nav focus moving into pre while you scroll? That part is almost certainly your smooth scroll focus management, not Prism. Prism only adds the attribute. It doesn't call focus. Common cause. After you scroll to a section, your code or a helper library does something like section focus, but the section isn't focusable, or focus the first focusable element in the section, and now that tab index 0 exists, it becomes the first obvious focus target, so focus jumps there. Expected accessibility pattern for in-page navigation. When activating a link to a section, move focus to the section heading or the section container. Programmatically, so screen readers announce, screen readers announce the new context. Do not leave focus on the nav item if you're changing the reading position significantly. But also don't shove focus into an arbitrary inner widget like a code block. Practically, focus the target heading with tab index -1, programmatic focus only, not in tab order, then scroll. Okay, so everything that it's saying makes sense, but it's giving me all these options and it's telling me to do things, but it doesn't know what my code is. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show it my HTML. Should I just, let's do this. I'm going to show it this. Oh, I can't do both at the same time. And this. Okay. So, this all sounds reasonable. I'm questioning that anything needs to be fixed based on your explanation. Here's my code. Here's my code. I'm using CSS native smooth scrolling. Let's just let it look at our code and see if it has any feedback. Okay. If you're truly only using native anchor links, so HTML, then nothing in your HTML and CSS is moving focus to the pre. Yeah, I know, the tab indexes. What you're experiencing. Okay, is that correct behavior? It depends on your goals. The pros of Prism's tab index 0. If a pre can scroll common with long lines of code, keyboard users can tab into it and then scroll or read it. Cons, adds extra tab stops. So here's why. Okay, so let's check and make sure that our code blocks are actually scrollable. I think that's number one. But my takeaway from this is that once we scroll to a section, so it doesn't matter specifically that the pre-code block is getting focus. Anything could be getting focus in these sections, right? There could be a link in here that gets a focus, which let's do that. Let's test that there's a link. I think my takeaway from all of this is that you don't want the focus to remain inside the navigation because it's on page scrolling. So if we scroll to CSS, we want the focus now to be on the CSS section, right? We want the screen reader to continue reading not the navigation, but what it just scrolled to. So that makes sense to me. So let's do this. This is going to be the best test. So let's just put in an anchor. And let's put this here. So we're just going to make this a random link. So what section do we do that in? We did that in the HTML section. Okay. So now if we are, let's do this with the keyboard. There, does that make sense? That makes sense to me. We want the natural focus to be the thing that we just scrolled to. We want the screen reader to read out this heading and read out this content. And of course, the user can just hit escape to close that navigation now. And now the focus has landed on this part of the page. So this makes sense to me that this behaves the way that it does. And honestly, I just learned something new that hadn't even occurred to me before. So tell me what you think. Let me know in the chat, or if you're on the replay in the comments, how you feel about this. This makes sense to me, and I like this. So, okay. My takeaway from this is that once we scroll to a section, it doesn't matter what is getting focus, it matters that focus isn't still on the navigation, but that a screen reader is focused or reading that section of content. Something I never thought of until just now, but makes total sense. Yes, that takeaway is exactly right, and it's a really important distinction. There are two different concepts that often get conflated. Keyboard focus, what receives tab, enter, key events. Screen reader reading context, virtual cursor. What content is being announced and explored? They overlap, but they are not the same thing. What actually matters for accessibility in-page navigation, when a user activates a new link, that jumps them down the page. The accessibility goals are the user understands their location changed, the screen reader announces new relevant content, keyboard users aren't trapped or confused, meaning they're not trapped in the navigation if they jumped to a new section on the page. What doesn't matter as much, whether focus is technically still on the nav link for a moment. Native anchor navigation already does most of the right thing here. What happens with native anchors, Node.js focus management, with ahref CSS? Okay, so this is our link. The browser scrolls to CSS, updates the URL fragment, leaves keyboard focus on the link. For screen readers, the virtual cursor typically moves with the viewport change and users immediately start reading the new section. They are not stuck in the nav the way a sighted keyboard user sometimes imagine. So from a screen reader perspective, context changed, new content is discoverable, nothing is broken. This is why native anchors are still considered accessible by default. This is so interesting to me, and it makes native anchors feel like they're still modern ways of doing things. When explicit focus management is needed, you only really need to manage focus manually when you're intercepting navigation with JavaScript, you're doing non-native scrolling, custom scroll containers and transforms, you're opening dynamic content like modals, accordions, tabs. The navigation does not cause a meaningful DOM position change. In those cases, you must move focus to avoid disorientation. But in your setup, we have native anchors, native scroll behavior, and no JavaScript scroll hijacking. So you're already in the do nothing is correct category. About Prism and pre-element tab index 0 in this mental model. Prism is solving a different problem, making code blocks reachable and scrollable via keyboard. It is not trying to define the reading order or the semantic focus target for navigation. So Prism adding a tab stop is fine. Focus ending up there later via tab is fine. It is not interfering with screen reader context. Once you separate where is keyboard focus from what content is the user now reading, the behavior you're seeing stops feeling wrong. A good rule of thumb you've basically landed on. Native navigation, let the browser handle it. JavaScript-driven navigation, manage focus intentionally. Extra tab stops, only a problem if they break task flow. In your case, none of those are violated. So yes, your instinct that nothing actually needs fixing is solid. This is one of those moments where understanding accessibility concepts makes the code feel calmer instead of more fragile. Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. This is so interesting. I didn't expect to run into this today. And Malik says, yeah, that gives them a clear view of what's being read out. That makes sense. That makes sense and works logically. So we are going to we're not going to, I don't think we're going to be dealing with it today, but we are going to be running into possibly into this because we are going to have to create an element when we click on one of the videos, a modal is going to pop up, right? And we are going to use JavaScript to create an element, to create an iframe and make sure that that's getting focused. So we're going to run into this again shortly once we get to that point. So this is a good, I feel like this is a good, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a good starting point. It's getting us thinking about tab stops, right? Tab indexes and accessibility for when we get to that modal portion. So, all right, I love that. I love that we learned that today. Because this is, okay, I will say this. This is like the second time we've done, is this the second time we've done on-page scrolling? Did we not test the on-page scrolling with Fiber and Craft? Maybe we'll have to have a QA day. Okay, let's do one more thing. Let's put in our dynamic. We need to put in a dynamic date for our copyright. And we have 2 copyrights, so that will have to be a loop. So let's see here. Okay. So let's do this. So we're going to get the date. Oh, yeah. And we'll get the year. So we're going to for each, here let's call this plural. For each date Did I not do it right? Dates for each date. Date text content equals year. Did I not do? Oh, I called them year. Okay. Let's change these to date. 2. Okay, there we go. 2026. There it is. I guess that makes it real. Okay, 2026. There we go. Okay, we are done with our JavaScript for today. So we can just get right back to styling and making things responsive. And Asan is here. Asan's is here. Happy New Year. Happy 2026. Welcome. We're happy to have you. Happy to have you. Okay. Let's get back to some vanilla styling. Let's work on this grid. Very pleased, very, very, very pleased with this header. You know what? Should we go ahead and let's go ahead and deploy this. And I don't have a GitHub page set up yet, so let's do that now. Deploy from a branch, deploy from main. And then just do this. And then let's go ahead and push this. And then we'll start working on some other things and we'll come back and test this. So this is JS for mobile header. All right. And we'll give that a moment. Okay. So let's make sure that our grid is responsive. We don't have too much to do in terms of making things responsive here. So this is like, we're kind of went with like a traditional 1200 pixel, 12 column grid. 1024 is our breakpoint for the navigation. I say we use 1024 to start breaking down the grid. I think that that's fine. That's reasonable. So let's make this, let's go 3, 2, 1. Why not? Why not? So here's our grid section. Here's the gallery section. Wrap. We'll do a couple of media queries. I don't usually do this many media queries, but considering what this is, I'm going to put in a couple extra just for the heck of it. So we'll just go ahead and say 3. And then I'm going to do another one at 768. I'm going to say 2, and I'm going to make this, change the gap to 1. And then I'm going to do, change this. And then I think we'll see how this looks. I think at 600, we'll just change this to 1 FR. And I don't think we need to do anything to change the gap because I think this gap will still be in place and it'll put a rem of gap beneath each item. That's what I think is going to happen. There we go, nice and smooth. I kind of want to change. I want to change this gap here instead. Yeah, I like that. And then this title 4 columns grid classic. Columns does not need to be plural, so let's just call it 4 column grid. 4 column grid. Yeah. Well, that was easy. Let's make sure. I feel like this is a little chunky right here. So this is the H3 video title. Where's our mock-up? Let's take a look at our mock-up. So I think that this is bold, but it doesn't need to be that bold. Okay. I think this could be a little smaller. So this is, we set the font weight to 700. I think I'm going to change it to like 600. We'll try 600. And the default font size, so the user agent style sheet for an H3 is 1.17 So let's change that to rems and change the font weight. Let's see here. So that is the page title. Nope, that's the wrong one. So we want the video title. So let's put this down with our grid CSS right in here. I'll go right here. Video title. We'll say font size. Let's try 1.25 rems, which I think is the same font size as the H1. And then the font weight, let's just kick that down to 600. Oh, it's still pretty big. I'm gonna do 1.1. I just don't think it needs to be that big. And Aslan says, can you share the code, please? Yes. You know what? I think I have the wrong thing linked in the description. So let me put it in the chat. So here's the GitHub repository for what we're currently working on. And Christian Codes is here. Welcome, Christian Codes. How are you doing? Christian Codes has been going live in the evenings. I've had a chance to sit and watch a couple of live streams. Welcome, my friend. So happy to see things going well on your channel. I just absolutely love seeing other people code live. So, and your audience is growing. I'm very, very happy to see that. So, welcome and Happy New Year. Okay, I like this. I like this. Let me zoom out a little bit. I'm zoomed in. So here's what this would look like at 100%. I'm on a big monitor, so I like to zoom in a little bit. We'll stay at 125. So. I love it. And I don't think we have a ton of responsive stuff to do here. Let's clamp this text. This is the paragraph text that we set to 1.25 rems. So let's clamp that so it transitions down to 1 rem for mobile. And then we should definitely test this scrolling with the keyboard. Let's do that. And then I close. Look at that. I'm using so we have some overflow on the body. That's probably from the footer is what I'm thinking. So we'll fix that. Something's overflowing. But this is, so ChatGPT was absolutely right that the pre-formatted element is getting focus so keyboard users can use their arrow keys to scroll the content. I love that. And then let's change this tab in the CSS also. And then what is causing the overflow? Okay, so the overflow is happening because our footer isn't responsive yet. We'll do that next. This is really coming together. I'm very, very pleased with this. So here's our Prism, which I haven't minified, but it's up here at the top here where we've got, and they put in vendor prefixes. So there's Mozilla tab size, Opera tab size, and then tab size. I thought we tab size 4. Really? Oh, wrong one. Hang on. I have this in here twice. So I kept the original Prism that I downloaded, but I actually combined Normalize and Prism. So right here. So tab size 1, tab size 1, tab size 1. Let's just try 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. I like that a lot better. What do we think? Yeah, I like that a lot better. Okay, let's, Angela, focus. So let's find where I think this is the video. Hang on, what is this? So this is the dark section or the light section paragraph tags. We set the font size to 1.25 rems. Let's clamp that. Right here. So we want 1 rem, 1.25 rems on the top end. What do we want in the middle here? 2 VW. I know there's a formula. I always seem to wing it. Let's see how this works in the browser. Okay, so that's pretty good. 1.25 rems. And then it switches over right at 988. That's really good. Perfect. That worked beautifully. We love that. And I'm good with our spacing also. All right, let's make our footer responsive, and then we'll do a little QA on our mobile device. Oh, let's also so this isn't quite even, and that's because we're using Flexbox, and one item is wider than the rest. So that's easy to fix. We just get the width of the longest item and we set the last item to that width. Or we can just put a page break to break that. We can do that too. I don't use breaks very often, but it's semantic HTML. It's completely fine to use them. Let's see here. We could just do just like that. And that evens this out pretty well. And it matches what we have happening here. Okay, let's make this. And you can see here that this is getting all of the styles exactly the same as the things that are happening in the main navigation. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. I don't want to reverse engineer all of that. So we just need to make it a little more specific. I didn't think of that, of course, when I was doing it. It's always a big surprise by the time I get to the footer. Okay, so here's our social nav icons. And really it's everything that we did in this media query. We don't want to do this in the footer. So I think we just want to make this more specific. The parent item of social nav for the header is navigation. So I think we can just go ahead and add a class to make it a little more specific. There we go. So we're still getting these desktop styles. We just want unique. We just want to make sure that they are unique for mobile, and this didn't screw anything up here. Okay, good. So I think all we need to do is decide where our breakpoint is for the footer. So I'm going to do 768. I'm going to kind of keep it standard. So here's 768. We'll just go ahead and stack these. And then we will be done with the footer. So it's the footer wrap. We have 3 sibling elements. And we'll just say at media, max width 768 pixels. And it's the footer wrap. And I think we can just say flex direction column, right? So this holds up beautifully by the time we get down to, I mean, we're down to like 236, which I think is fine. That's more than supported. Let me zoom back out. I think this looks just fine. Let's get this pushed up and we will go ahead and test on my iPhone. Okay. Responsive layout. What else did we just do? Responsive layout, CSS. Give me a moment. Get my phone hooked up here. All right, let's make sure that everything is deployed to our GitHub page. I think so. All right. There we are. You can't see the gray box, unfortunately. You're going to have to trust me that it's there. The contrast isn't very good when I share my iPhone, but everything else, the gray boxes are there. Oh, and let me put this in the chat for people. So if you want to take a look on your end. And Memory Clips is here. Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome. Thank you. Memory Clips, you sent me an email and I'm so sorry I haven't responded yet, wishing me a Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I haven't responded yet. I promise I am going to get to email soon. And then Malik says, did you hear about the iPhone Fold that will come out supposedly this year? Love me foldable phone. I've had my Z Fold 5 for years now. Interesting. A foldable phone doesn't appeal to me, but I could see why it would have appeal. I did not hear about that. I'm not very good at staying on top of new hardware or new tech like that. So thank you. I'm behind on everything. I'm just behind on so many things right now. So, okay. You'll have to trust me. Those gray boxes are there. It's just really low contrast. But I think everything is looking really, really good. So we've got that nice horizontal scroll for these pre-code blocks. I like the size of the text, the paragraph text. The footer looks just fine. We can scroll back to top. Nice. I'm very happy with this. Oops. Yeah, there is. Oh, it's because the link. That's why. Hang on, we can fix that link. I think I just did. So I think we want to do index.html, I guess would be, but I don't want the URL to say index.html. Can't I just do this? Okay, let's deploy that and make sure that that works. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Angela, stop it. Okay, so here's what I did. This had, this link just had a slash, which means the root. But if we add a dot slash, pretty sure that means the root of the current directory, not the root root. Does that make sense? And that appears to work locally, so let's go ahead and deploy that and make sure that works on GitHub Pages. Fixing the H1 link. Okay, we'll give that a minute. And Malik says, looks good to me, just the right size, not hard to read or navigate. Good, 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 good. Okay, I think this is fixed now. So let's go ahead and send a fresh link. Okay, still isn't working. Hang on. Caching on iPhone is this one right here. Okay, now it's fixed. Now it's fixed. Good. Nice. Okay, good. Good, good, good. This makes me so happy. I've spent, I mean, I really have thought for such a long time, you need to redo this responsive video gallery. You need to redo this. Redesign this thing already. So I'm very, very happy that we're doing it. We're getting it done. All right. I've tried to figure out how to fix the contrast when I'm sharing my iPhone. I'd have no idea how to fix that. If it's even something that I can fix. I've tinkered with it. I don't have any idea. I have no clue. So, okay, that's done. That was kind of all I had planned for today. I didn't have anything else planned. Let's make a list of what we need to work on this weekend. And by we, I mostly mean, I guess, me. Let's do just like a QA document. I'll just call it QA.md. Okay. what do we need to do? Okay, so we need to finish data for videos JSON file. What else do we need to do? I think we need to add an SVG play button to each video. We could probably do that now. We have time. Add SVG play button to each video. Figure out the HTML for the modal window. Figure out the CSS for the modal window. JS for dynamic videos from JSON. What else? We need to write the instructions, write the content / instructions for implementation. Implementation. Yeah. Oh, and we need a README file. Add a README file. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do this. We got time. So let's go ahead and add an SVG play button and style those. So on hover, we have a button to click. And then I think this weekend, I kind of already put this in here. So here's our gallery. Here's each of these articles. I thought I put this in here already. Here's our scroll point. I really thought I put this in here. Did I hide it someplace? Here it is. Here's the modal window. So we need to spend some time thinking about where this modal window is going to go. We definitely need to have like in my opinion, I want there to be a div on the page, and then we'll use JavaScript to find this div, and then we'll create the iframe element. So when you click on a video, this modal will appear, and the JavaScript will fill in that ID, right? And we'll create the iframe element. Now, before I write any JavaScript to handle the click event, I'm going to fully build out this modal window and the transition with CSS. Because I think that you could definitely use JavaScript to do all of that work. But like I said, I think the drawer, the mobile off-canvas navigation drawer, is a great example of how I will use as much CSS as I possibly can to do all of that work. And I will tend to use JavaScript to create click events to add and remove classes. Or in this case, we will create an element and dynamically add the ID. But you can't do any of that until you have all of those details worked out first with HTML and CSS. And then JavaScript is the last thing that I do. That's my approach. And I think it works well. And I've got it keeps the JavaScript incredibly simple, and it lets the HTML and the CSS do the majority of the work. So, but for now, let's go ahead and add an SVG play button to the figure. So we're going to put it right after the image, and then we'll add a transition here on hover. So let's go find a play button. I like to use Ionicons. Yes. And Malik says, we love QA around here. People always QA your work. Or what did you say, Malik? We are a QA household here. We are a QA household. So let's see here. I think we can just grab a play button. We'll use this right here. And Rehan is here. Hello, welcome. Happy New Year. All right. And let's see if we can find a semi-efficient way to do this. And we'll add aria hidden true. And you can see now that we have that SVG there. Perfect. This is the fun part, the CSS part. I think so, at least. Okay, let's find our grid. So here is our gallery section figure. We want to make sure that this is position relative. Here's our image, and then we'll do our gallery section SVG. And we'll go ahead and say position absolute. So it is absolutely positioned against the figure, which is the parent container. So here's the figure, here's the image, here's the SVG, and the image and the SVG are siblings. The figure is the parent. So we'll say position absolute. We're going to say top 50%, left 50%, and then we're going to transform, translate, and it's going to be X and Y. So we're going to say negative 50% on the x-axis, negative 50% on the y-axis. And that should put it right in the middle. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, and you know what? This needs to be a button. Yeah, this needs to be a button. Okay. My bad. So let's go ahead and, okay, we've highlighted all of those. Wait a second. Okay. So you can see over here in the mini map that I have all 12 highlighted. So we'll say button. And let's give this a class. Well, actually, we need an aria label. Play video, and then we need to give it a class, and we'll do the same thing, play underscore video. So that means that our button play video is absolutely positioned, is now the sibling of the image and the child of the figure. So we just need to adjust our CSS. So instead of SVG, we're going to say play video. And it shouldn't change. It should look exactly the same, except that this is now a button, which will get focus. There we are. So you can see now that button is getting focus. Okay, so now we have some choices about how we want to style this button, right? Do we want to just leave the button on top of the image? Do we want to make it a color? Do we want to put a big circle around it? What do we want to do with it? I think we want to make sure that it's accessible, so we don't want to give it any transparency. We want to make it big, so it needs to be a minimum of 48 by 48 pixels. Let's just make a big white button. And we'll make sure that we'll make sure that the button is over top of every image, so you don't have to hover on the image to see the button, because I don't think that that's a good accessibility practice. We want to make sure it's visible and that it says to people who are on the page, like, hey, click this. These are all things that you click, right? So we'll say gallery section, SVG. So let's make sure that this has a width of, well, right now it's 1.333. Let's make it a little bigger. Let's give this a width of 2 rems and a height of 2 rems. And then we'll do a fill of white. All right. Let's give this some padding. So the button, we'll give the button a little padding. So if this is 2 rems, the padding would be 0.5 rems on each side. That would make it 3. Let's give this a border of 2 pixels, solid, white, and then border radius of 50%. Yeah, just like that. It looks a little off kilter, doesn't it? That's fine. So we'll put a little more padding on the left and a little less padding on the right. And that's just because it's a triangle. So our padding would be 0.5 on the top. So top, right, bottom, left. 0.25 rems on the right, 0.5 rems on the bottom, 0.75 rems on the left. Let's see if that works. It's a little too much. So instead of 25, we'll do this. See if that evens it out. Oh, that's perfect. Look at that. We're so good at this, you guys. We are so good at this. Malik says, you already know my answer. No circle backgrounds for the SVGs. We want some soft corners for the backgrounds. Sorry. I'm going circles. I'm going circles. Rihan Anwar, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. And then what do we want this transition to be? Let's just invert. That's what I'm thinking. Let's invert it when there's a transition. So here's our button. So we'll focus, hover, active, and I want we have to add a background color then if we're going to do that. So background color is going to be transparent. So we're going to change the background color to white. And then we're going to change the fill from white to, well, we could change it to a different color like navy. So we're not going to change that. So this would be okay, so a couple things are happening here. The play video class is the button. That's the thing that gets focus. It's the thing that we're interacting with. So when we focus hover or the button is active, we change the background color from transparent to white. Also, when the play video button is focus hover or active, we trigger the SVG to go from white to navy. I love it. I love it. Let's put a transition on those now. So we're going to say transition, and we're transitioning the background color. 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. This is just a little formula that I like. And we'll do the same thing here on the fill. So we're going to transition the fill 300 milliseconds, ease in, out, and that should smooth that out for us. I love it. So the thing that I don't want to do is I personally don't like it when an entire thing is clickable. I want just the button to be clickable. And here's the thing. Often what a leadership team will ask me to do on the job is they will say, make this whole thing clickable. So when you are clicking any part of this element, it's triggering it. Technically, you could do that. You would have to wrap the button around this entire element. Personally, if we were going to do that, I would do it like I would have the article first, and then I would do the button wrapping around the entire thing. So you could technically do that, and then that would give the entire element focus. So you could do all the transitions anytime your mouse enters, and then this entire element would actually get focus. I personally just don't like the look of that. I don't like having that much of the page be hot, right? It's just not my thing. So this is how I do it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it. I think you can choose the way that you like to do it. And yeah, so that's perfect. That does exactly what we want it to do. And Malik says, I want one veto vote to place border radius somewhere one day. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, Malik. I will give you veto power over a border radius in the near future. So actually, that's a good point. Let's talk about what we're going to do after this. We still have a fair amount of work to do on this. I think that I would say we're about 2/3 of the way done with this project. It is moving right along. It is moving right along beautifully. the next thing that I want to do, well, first of all, let me digress for a minute. The thing that we worked on last time was this thing called Italia, right? It was just sort of a landing page that we built, kind of the standard thing that I like to do here. But we also did deployment, where we deployed it to this practice layouts domain as a subdomain. And I said at the time, practice layouts. I didn't have anything for this, right? I want to do something for this. I bought this domain because I wanted to build a landing page that was just like my philosophy on why I want to see people doing more practice layouts, right? Just projects to get good at HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript for DOM manipulation, and just my philosophy about why I think project-based learning is so incredibly important. So when we finish the responsive video gallery, let me start putting something together for practice layouts. And Malik, I will give you veto power over border radius on that, because it's going to be well, I have a vision. It's tough for me to explain, but I have a vision. So I will hopefully, I know we're going to be ready to work on practice layouts by next week. So I need to get something together. It's not going to be a complete, it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a starter, okay? It's going to be a starter. It's something that's going to evolve over time as I work on it. But let me at least get the starter page designed, and that's the next thing that we're going to work on together. And I will give you veto power. You deserve it, my friend, because you are so kind. You are so generous. You are here every weekend helping me with the chat. I will give you veto power. You've earned it. You've earned it. So this will be the next thing that we work on. Yeah, I think this is, what else can we work on? We still have like 20 minutes left. Let's update some of our content. So we know that these headers need to be updated. Let's see here. So here's HTML. Here's the CSS. Should we just start to fill in some of the markup? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's fill in some of the markup. It's work time, right? This is work time. So let's do some work. Okay, so here's our gallery. Here's the HTML. I don't think we need all of this text. I think we can cut some of this down. So here's, I think we can remove some of this. I like to stream for at least 2 hours. It's just a nice round number. All right, so we don't need the HTML. Here's the CSS. We don't really have the JavaScript ready to go yet, but that's fine. We can at least get these sections tidied up, right? One moment. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Malik. It's the second time in a row that I've done that. I'm so sorry. So here's what we're working on. Hopefully it was obvious what I was doing. So in order to get these code blocks working, you can't use real HTML. Oh, yeah. Well, luckily I've just been muttering to myself for 5 minutes, so I apologize to anybody who was watching and saw me muted. So here's what we're doing. To get these code blocks working, you have to use HTML characters. I can't put in this because this will actually render it as HTML. So the way that we get around that is we have to put in the equivalent HTML entity to represent the character. That's how this works. And then in order to get the spacing to work, you have to put in NBSP, which means non-breaking space. So this is kind of the fussy part of putting code blocks onto your page, that if you want this to render as copyable code, you have to do some of the fussy HTML entity work. Otherwise, your code is going to render as HTML. I hope that makes sense. So let's see here. So that is what I'm doing. And I'm just going to separate some of this out so I can see what's happening. So here's our SVG, here's the path, here's the button, here's the figure. I'm going to put these on the same line. We can do that. That's okay there. These we don't need to. Oh, actually we do. Oh, and actually we need it there too. We need the and less than sign there as well. Okay, so I think we about have this here. So the image and the button are siblings, so these can have the same number of spaces. The SVG is a child of the button. So I'm going to copy this and add that there. Plus I'm going to add two more, NBSP and NBSP. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm going to do it here also. This is the path is the child of the SVG, so we'll put that there and we'll add two more. And we'll take a look and see how this looks. Oh, it looks great. We have a nice indent. Yes. And Malik says, I may have missed it, but I'm confused on the purpose of non-breaking space and LT. So anytime you want to show pre-formatted code on your HTML page, you have to change, I'll go back here. If we just did this, if we just put this, the less than symbol in, this would actually render this as HTML. We don't want it to render as HTML. We want it to render as a piece of code. But in order to prevent it from rendering as HTML, you have to use the the entity, the HTML entity rather than the symbol itself, right? And this also isn't doing any of the indentation for us. We have to do it ourselves. And in order to, the way that you create a space in HTML is you use the NBSP, which is the non-breaking space. So, okay. Okay, and so now here's the button. So we can use the same number of spaces for the button. So I'm going to copy this and we'll put it right here. And then here's the figure. So we can use the same number of spaces for the figure. It's fussy. It's fussy. If you want to have a web page that shows code blocks, this is what you're going to run up against. But look at how nice this looks. And so now where do we want our H3? How many spaces do we want our remaining? So I want the H3 to be a, well, we can see here because the browser's doing it for us. The the figure, the H3, and the paragraph are all siblings. So I'll copy this again. Perfect. And then the article, we'll grab the number of spaces for that article, which is right here. So this is 4. And then the div has 2. And the section has none. So we can take that out. And you can see there it kind of takes shape, right? There it is. There's our code block. So I think this will need some modification over time. This is a great question. Malik is asking, and is that specific for Prism or is it native? Anytime you use pre or code, you will have to change the characters from the character itself to the entity, the HTML entity. So it is not specific to Prism. This is the behavior in the browser. So, good question. So we have a good start here about how this should look. Now, the good news is once we get down to the CSS, this is a non-issue. We don't have to do this for CSS because CSS doesn't render like an HTML code block does, right? The JavaScript, on the other hand, I think we do have to do this at some places for the JavaScript. Yeah, well, for the indentation, you have to do you don't need it for the code block itself, you just need it for indentation. And I guess same for the CSS. You need it for indentation. So let's grab some more accurate CSS. So I think we would want all of the CSS so we would want the CSS for the wrap, for the article, for the figure, for the image, for the button, for the SVG, and the video title, right? So this formats really well, CSS. This formats really well, but let's just put some spaces in here. So we'll just go right here and NBSP and NBSP. And we'll copy this now. So we can put that there. that there. And I expect that we're going to refine some of this. We have to write like the instructions. We have to sort of have to explain it, the implementation, what's happening. So we will add that eventually, but for now this is a pretty good start. Whoops. There we go. And so what's important is that each of these things is represented up here, right? So you could see what an entire section looks like. Here's the H2. In fact, I will definitely modify some of what's going on here. Yeah, this looks really good. We would probably, see, I have to decide if I want to keep these variables in or if I just want to put in the hex code. Yeah, so there's definitely things to do here, and then here would be the JavaScript. Okay, well, this is a really good start. This is a really good start. So this gives me, this is stuff that I need to really think about. And Malik says, that is really useful. I thought it was Prism specific. I am a lot more likely to use it then. So I think personally, this is good to know if you're planning on doing any like blogging, or if you just want to create any, if you're a developer who's creating educational content, I could see it kind of makes sense to me that you would want to understand how to put code blocks in a HTML document for people, right? If you're doing educational content. So this looks great. Let's go ahead and push this up to GitHub. Gosh, part of me wants to say that I can't believe I was muted for 5 minutes, but that's just not true. I can absolutely believe that I was muted for 5 minutes. So, thank you, Malik, for being here. Thank you, Malik, for saving me from myself. So, updating section content and code blocks. Git push origin main. Yeah, I'm glad I did this. I need to spend some time thinking about how I want those sections to look. So all right. Well, this was productive. This was good. This was a good couple of productive days. Very pleased. Very, very pleased. Ooh, look at this. We have some Z index that we need to adjust. Let's go ahead and do that. It's because we're using our parent is the figure is position relative and the button is position absolute. So we should be setting Z index, but it makes me think that really we just need to set a Z index on the header, and that will take care of that. Z index 1. Try to avoid a battle of the Z indexes. I can't stress this enough. Develop a deep understanding of positioning and Z index, and I'm telling you, it's going to save you. It's going to save you. So we'll just go ahead and add Z index 1. And I'm going to push that as well. fixing header z-index. So let's tab through this. I love it. Beautiful. Thank you, Monique. All right. Very, very good, productive couple of days. Thank you, everybody who hung out with me, sharing your holiday with me. Monique, Rahul, Malik. Who else did we have today? We had Eson's, Christian Codes was here, Memory Clips was here, Rehan was here. Thank you to everybody. Do me a favor, if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps the algorithm, helps me push this out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you. Thank you, Malik. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll be back on Saturday. I think I had said I said that I was going to do a 7-day sprint. It's going to be a 5-day sprint. So starting Saturday, this Saturday, January 5th, we're going to do a 5-day sprint. What I anticipate is that we're going to get this project finished and then we're going to start working on the next project. There will definitely be some deployment. Responsive Video Gallery is already deployed, so I'm not going to do a complete deployment setup. We're just going to crack open FileZilla and deploy the new version of the site. So it's not going to take like a full day, but there will be some deployment content. Yeah, and then we're going to jump into the next project, which is we're going to do a landing page for practicelayouts.com. So I think that's the perfect next project. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful, happy New Year's Day. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Bye-bye.